Hi everybody, I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are having a great day today. I wanted to thank y'all so much for your responses on my community tab. I posted a poll in there asking what subject matter topics y'all would like to see more of. I kind of oscillate from three different topics between non-duality, twin flame journey, and manifestation. So I posted a poll on there for y'all to answer and kind of give me your feedback, because your feedback is very important to me. I want to create and produce things that y'all will resonate with and y'all are interested in. So I posted that there and I have gotten some responses. If you haven't responded, please go on there and let me know what you want to see more of. Right now it's non-duality is the winner, and that's not to say that I won't be sharing some of the other topics. I do plan to have more of a multi kind of dimensional channel with a little bit of everything here and there eventually, but with mostly the basis of non-duality, or the understanding of that, and coming from a space where I'm sharing things from a non-dual awakening perspective. So I want to thank y'all so much again for that. If you haven't voted, please get on there and let me know what you want, and that way I can create that kind of content for y'all. So in doing so, I did hear your responses that you wanted to see more non-duality content. So I want to start incorporating a new kind of weekly video series, and this one will be called Non-Duality Pitfalls. Non-Duality Pitfalls is something that I will be sharing the just different topics relating to pitfalls that you can kind of fall into with non-duality. So what I mean by pitfalls is literally falling into like a pit that's very hard to climb yourself out of or get yourself out of. So these are those loops that people are constantly on, and this can happen a whole lot with non-duality. It constantly happens in our actual world with what I will be speaking about today, but it certainly does happen a lot with non-duality with certain different issues that come up. So I will be sharing that, and today's topic will be a victim mindset or victimhood, or just feeling like a victim, right? So, adopting that victim mindset can certainly happen in non-duality, and even if you didn't even have that. But most of us have, and all of us probably have been a victim at some point in our experience of life. It just is something that happens in life, right? So these are those happenings that happen that, you don't feel so much in control of, but things happen, and it can happen that you are a victim of something, or something happens where, okay, yes, it really seems that I am a victim of this because this is not something that I consciously chose. And so what happens with non-duality, and where we can see some issues, is where the pitfall happens is in the mindset of thinking that understanding non-duality as a concept of it's just happening, and it's just happening, and acceptance. So one of the messages that non-duality speaks about is accepting what is, and whatever is happening in your reality is just what's happening, right? There's nothing, it's not personal, there's nothing behind it, and essentially there's really no actual you, individualized person, let's say this person, that's just all there is, right? It's more expansive when you experience it. You experience it as you being everything, so you don't see yourself very limited like this. But without having that direct experience, your experience is still going to be very limited. So you're still going to feel, like a person inside this body who may not have a whole lot of power. You may feel very powerless, maybe disempowered in a lot of ways. And the victim mindset only really adds to that disempowerment. So that's where the problem is, because what non-duality is, or having this experience of non-dualism, having this experience of the world with direct contact with what is as just life, is something actually very empowering. It's not disempowering, it's empowering. It's expansive, it's love. So it's actually the opposite of what's happening in the victim mindset that I so often see when I observe individuals that have had a lot of non-duality content. Maybe they're watching a lot of videos, maybe they're reading a lot of books, maybe they're going to a lot of retreats. They're going to these things, and sometimes they're engaging in things that they're understanding conceptually, but they haven't experienced personally. And without that, there could be that pitfall of actually falling into victimhood. So if you actually are only understanding the concept of non-duality, you experience life just happening to you. And your concept of that is to just accept what's happening to you. That is part of it. Yes, I will agree that, non-duality, accepts all that is, and there's a certain level of personal responsibility with that. It's a strange thing, even without the self here. When the self drops away, it's seen that there is no individual self. That's everybody's just this individual person that, is accountable to themselves. Yes, that is still seen to a certain extent, but it's seen to a more expansive state, seen as more as uh, the most expansive that you can be as far as responsibility. So not only am I only not only am I now responsible for what's happening with this individual, I feel responsible for everything that's occurring in my environment. Whether my dog is cranky that day, whether my husband is arguing with me that day, all of these things are happening through me, within me, as life happening. And yes, a lot of it is just happening, and it's not that, I've sat there and like tinkered with every little piece of reality and said this is what my reality is going to be today. No, it's just going into understanding that you can choose between your attitude. So have you ever heard that, you can choose how you react to something? So let's say you may have heard, in teaching, one of the things that happens a lot is children and students will sometimes get aggressive with each other, and one student will shove another or maybe even punch another or get physical. And so it's seen, that in investigating what happened between these two children, that one child said something to the other. And it's just, almost nature now as a teacher to really explain to the child, it doesn't really matter what the other person did to you. You can control your response. You do not have to hit them. You do not have to match them with whatever it is that, you feel is the right response for that. You can control yourself, calm yourself, and follow the classroom rules and come tell the teacher. So those are the things that you teach children at school. Well, those things continue on and on until adulthood. It's just seen that that's the way life is. Things are going to happen to us. People are going to say things to us. Life circumstances are going to occur. We're going to be born into maybe this lifestyle instead of this one or that one. But in the end, our reaction and what we do with it is what animates it and kind of lets you and allows you to choose one direction or the other. Have you noticed that in like households where there's like a lot of abuse or like an alcoholic parent or some sort of disruption in the home, and there's two children, maybe very close in age, let's even say they're twins or even say they're identical twins, you will see that one person will choose one route in life, and sometimes that'll be a very kind of, in human terms, a very negative like path in life, and maybe they'll go into crime and hurt other people. And so that's where you see that cycle of hurt people. So that person is still hurt, still living in that victim mentality, so now they're going to go hurt people. And then the other sibling maybe was very hurt as well, but took a different route of seeing what happened and wanting to choose something different and saying, you know what, I'd never want to be like my father, or I never want to be or have a situation or household like this when I create my own household. So that person creates a whole nother reality than the sibling. Do you see how they are very, very different? One person is now going to be on the track of being very successful, having a very conscious family where he is understanding, feelings, emotions, everything, because he has invested in not wanting that experience that he grew up in. While the other one's also not wanting to experience that reality, they are so hurt and feel so powerless and feel so disempowered that the only other thing they can see is just living in that victim mentality and hurting others. And of course, they're doing it unconsciously, but this is a space where I want to provide nourishment and a safe space for, thoughts and having insights and things like that. And if this is occurring within your own life, this is something to really look at. And this is what those videos about non-duality pitfalls are. It's not to bash non-duality. It's not any of that. Of course, it's all beautiful. Everything that's occurring is beautiful. But if you are in this mindset, or if you fall into this victimhood kind of cycle or loop, it's important to recognize it and kind of get yourself out of it, right? Or choose something different. Because for the most part, people don't really actually choose the victim mindset. It's something that happens unconsciously. So for the person that is living that lifestyle, it's really happening unconsciously. Or it could happen between confusion, manipulation, or just confusion within the own mind. Your mind is not exactly a friend or an enemy. It's just something that's there. The brain is there to create, to function, to create a function for your body to work, for you to be safe. And essentially it's trying to create, as far as we see emotionally wise or psychologically, it's trying to create safety for you. And while we would think that the mind would want to work these situations out and get yourself out of the victim mindset, it sees the easiest path. And the easiest path is just for you to see that you are a victim and never go back or get involved in these situations again. But as you can see unconsciously, that's not really what occurs. What occurs is more pain, more hurt, more victimhood, rather than more power, more choices. So you are not choiceless. You are not disempowered. You have every choice open to you. So let me just share some of my own personal experiences, which is what I kind of do here, is just share my own experiences to ignite kind of like an insight for you. And so in my own personal life, I've experienced victimhood in different ways. Now, I'm not a victim mentality person. That hasn't been my personality throughout life, but I can see how it's sprung up, and I can see where I haven't clung to that, but I could have. I mean, it can go either way very easily. So everybody goes through victim situations. Now, most of it, a lot of times, unfortunately, happens in childhood, and that's where we are sometimes very unconscious to what's happening, and the brain is really just kind of functioning for us if we are hurt, because it knows how to protect us more than probably we do at that age. Most young children are not as mature as an adult, yet there are some. There's not very many. So in that childhood, you could have been victimized, and it could have began there. It usually does begin there. You may even begin to notice differences between how different races are being treated, or how you're being treated due to your race, or how you're being treated due to your economic status, or who your parents are. So you will start to notice and pick up on all of these things as a child, and you may just kind of notice them and they become aware to you, or you may become to internalize them as a victim mindset. And so think back to your childhood. Did you carry any victim mindsets back then? Were you ever a child that, was saying things like, we can't afford these things at home, or I can never have this? And it's almost like a declaration. When it becomes a very ingrained victim mindset, it's more of a declaration. I can't have this because bad things always happen to me, or I can't have this because I'm poor, or I can't do this because I'm not smart. So you will start to see this. Did that happen in childhood? It could have been a teacher, it could have been, a family member, something that brought you into this mindset, because maybe you didn't do something like exactly right like they wanted, and maybe they called you a name, or you felt like they didn't value what you did there. So these things can begin to develop in childhood, and they usually do. So go back to your childhood and see if maybe you have adopted or had any victim mindsets back then. Now, this victim mindset is not what non-duality is. When non-duality, when it's seen what this reality is, all of your beliefs and labels about yourself fall away. Victimhood is actually a label that you consciously or even unconsciously add to yourself. And so this begins to happen because it's very attractive to the ego to have a mindset that now it can kind of filter everything through of why these things are happening. It's all happening because of this, because you're, this, because you're poor, because you're a single mom, because, you are a felon, because this or that. So now everything that happens to you is happening to you because of that reason. And so you've owned it as part of you. And do you see how hard it is to break away from something like that when it now becomes part of your identity? Your identity is not fixed. Your identity is not something that isn't flexible or able to be changed. It can be changed at any point. But when you add these victim mindsets or all these different mindsets, it makes it so dense and hard for anything else to kind of penetrate or get in there and open up the fact that you are not those things. So that's what this conversation is kind of about, is to kind of loosen up the roots in there and just kind of give a little opening and space and oxygen for you to see, is there any victim mindsets occurring on a loop in your reality? And if there is that benefiting you? Because you can actually choose. You don't have to be disempowered. You actually can be empowered and expansive and open to all of the choices that you have, not just your very slim, narrow victim mindset. So in my own personal life, I've have different just things that come up when I think of victim mindset. So one time I was working at a nonprofit organization with some other counselors. And so it was me and two other counselors, and we were going out to lunch. And I was new to this organization. Actually, they had just recently received a grant that I was working on a different project at a different organization, and I really liked it. So I went ahead and just merged into this new company and went with them since they were the new ones that received the grant. So anyhow, I was getting to know these ladies, and so we went out to eat for lunch. And when we arrived to this restaurant, there's hardly anybody there. Lunch was just beginning. And so the waitress sits us all the way in the very back of the restaurant. And so when we sit down there, I'm thinking in my head, oh, this is so nice. It's nice and private right now, and like there's no rush. So we'll be able to talk and discuss. And since we work kind of with, sensitive subject matter and stuff at work, sometimes it's nice to talk about some of these things to kind of, debrief and just kind of, it feels good to get some of the stuff out. But at the same time, it's sensitive subject matter, not that you want to be like talking at lunch and everybody hearing. So for me, actually, it was a plus. I was like, wow, we can actually go back there and talk a little bit more freely without having to worry so much about what others may hear. But immediately, one of my coworkers that was with me got very, very upset. Actually, we went all the way to the back to where they sat us, and they sat us down. And when the waitress came back to get our drinks, this coworker of mine was so mad, and she hadn't shared with us why she was mad. She just went straight to the waitress. And she said to the waitress, I am really upset with what is happening here, how you have sat us in the very back of your restaurant because we're Mexican. It's not right what you're doing. Just because we're Mexican does not mean that you need to kind of hide us away and put us in the very back of the restaurant where no one can see us. And the waitress was like, kind of shocked, and she kind of stood there for a minute. And she said, ma'am, actually, we did not sit you back here for any particular reason like that. We actually just brought you back here because we have a very large lunch crowd, and we start filling up the back side of the restaurant first and move to the front. And that's just our procedure of how we seat people at this restaurant during our lunchtime because it's so busy. So the coworker of mine continued to still say that it had something to do with her being Mexican, and I am Mexican myself, so just everybody that was there being Mexican, and that's why we were seated there. I actually really enjoyed the spot that we were sitting. I enjoyed, being in that spot, and I thought it was a great idea that the restaurant had that kind of procedure already in place. So do you see how different mindsets can have completely different viewpoints and even experiences? Like, one person can go to a restaurant and really enjoy their meal and love it and be able to converse with people and, enjoy their space, while another one is stuck in this victim mentality of thinking that they are now a victim again because they're at a restaurant. So the other thing that happened with this coworker was, kind of just discussing what had happened with her and just saying, what, we really don't think it really was a race thing. And she got very upset with us. And now this is something that happens to her all the time. And it's something that happens to us all the time as Mexicans. And it's something that we need to be paying attention to because it's constantly happening. While she's saying this, I'm witnessing and seeing other people being seated in the very back of the restaurant now with us, and still the front rooms are empty, and they were not Mexican. There were white people, there were black people, there were all kinds of races, and we were all being seated in the back rooms first. So it was very clear that this was the procedure of the restaurant. But yet this coworker continues on and on with this whole thing about how Mexicans are being treated badly in that area. So it was never my experience that Mexicans were being treated badly. If anything, I actually worked with the Hispanic population there. I was counseling people in Spanish. So I was very well, versed on what was happening in the community with these clients because they were sharing some of their deepest, darkest problems at the time, and none of those had anything to do with racism or being, singled out due to being Mexican. So you can kind of see this play out in so many people's lives. So within your own family, friends, and all of that, you will definitely be able to see examples of victim mindset because it's constantly happening all over the place. But the thing is, you are not just that. So even if she wanted to think that, Mexicans were being treated this way, the thing is, she's actually not just limited to being Mexican. The thing is, she's not just, even if they were actually doing this to her, that's not who she is. And if she identified with something a little different than that, even something a little bit higher self-worth than that, then she wouldn't even be in that mindset. But the whole circumstance of her life or whatever has happened has kind of conditioned her. So this is an unconscious thing. This is not something to get mad about somebody else about or to get upset with them. It's something to recognize or point out and allow the person to unravel and develop for themselves. It's completely an unconscious thing that happens. But once you accept that victim mindset as who you are, as part of your identity, it is very closely ingrained. And it is personal now. And that really is a pitfall for non-duality because you will never be able to realize non-duality or have that experience of it clinging to such a label, okay? Clinging to any label. So an awakening can happen for anybody. That'll happen if it's supposed to happen for anybody. And so in everybody's life, there is a point where that will happen in your timeline. But for now, if you're exhibiting the victim mindset, it's something to kind of look at and examine and change or choose something different because you can choose whether or not you hit that other child. Like in that example, you can choose whether or not you accept that victim mindset as who you are. Is that really who you are? Feel into your heart. Does that really feel and resonate right to you? Are you really just, this person that's a victim to racism, So the other thing that happened to me was, I had my daughter early in my marriage, my first marriage, and I was divorced by the time she was about 4 years old, 3.5 from 4 years old. So around that time, I had this sense of really wanting to kick it in gear, really wanting to work, just really focus on supporting my daughter, and for whatever reason that was more financial. So I went straight to going to work and doing all of these things, and I really didn't take a lot of time to process everything that had happened with the divorce and everything like that because I had adopted suddenly this mindset of being a single mom. And with being a single mom, I thought single mom meant struggle. I thought single mom meant having to work all day and night and just long hours and coming home at the end of the day and not having much time with your child. I thought all of these struggles of being a single mom was what I was now going to have to face. And I instantly went into that role. So what had happened in that moment was that I had become a single mom in my mindset. And now I had that victim mentality of being a single mom. So everything now became harder for me. I had now this mindset that life would be hard, that I had to work long hours to support my child, that I wasn't going to have much help, that I wasn't going to have much money, that I wasn't going to have much time to myself, that I wasn't going to ever probably find anybody else that would, integrate and be part of my life as a partner. So all of these things began to occur by me adopting this single mom mindset. So this is why I bring this up. This is something to really pay attention to, in your life. Is it coming up for you? Are you finding yourself, or did you at some point in your life unconsciously choose a certain mindset or a certain identity for yourself that may not be serving you today? Because if I had continued to live in that victim mindset of single mom, I probably would have never had the realization or the lifestyle I lead today. So that's just pretty much facts. If I had followed that timeline as single mom, that was a certain kind of life, and we can actually go and find that life because it all exists. All the choices are open to you. So that life continued on in a certain way, that lived out a certain way as being that victim of a single mom. And this is just all to say, to point out to you, is it happening anywhere in your life? Look at that and see, is there a way to kind of see whether or not you've fallen into any victim mindset? And if you have, just to let you know, this is a situation where each moment is new, where each moment is born fresh. So in each moment you can reroute, just like GPS is constantly rerouting. You can reroute yourself to your true divine nature at any moment. So this is these videos of non-duality pitfalls are not to like cause any issues with non-duality and say, oh, it's not true or this or that. No, it's just to point out anything that could be happening that could be bringing you more into separation rather into unity with all that is. So things to be aware of is what these videos will be about. But if I hadn't met my husband, really, if I hadn't had the mindset of, okay, when I had met my husband, to take that small risk of going on a date with him and having that little bit of opening, I would have never really probably come out of that programming of this single mom lifestyle, because I was already becoming so ingrained in it. It didn't feel good and it wasn't natural, but that's how I was living, So, in that moment, I decided that I was no longer going to be working at that place I was working, because I was waking up super early and sitting in rush hour traffic, going to work, in the morning around 4 in the morning, sitting in traffic for about 2 hours, and then getting to the office and working really hard on really hard and deep topics and situations with people coming from other countries. This is when I worked at a refugee center, and it was very just all kinds of issues that people were coming in with. It was definitely a learning experience for me, that's for sure. And so that situation, I worked there, until like 6 p.m. I'd get off, and then I'd sit in rush hour traffic in Houston. In Houston, the traffic is absolutely horrible. So I would sit for 2 hours in traffic going all the way back home, only to get home to my young daughter, who is now getting her pajamas on, getting ready for bed. And basically I would just give her a bedtime story, and if she hadn't taken her bath or something, do that and get her to bed. And that's no way to live. So that is not a way to live, guys, at all. Your family, your children, all of that should come first, unless, let's say it's your passion that you really want to work, and so maybe you have a supportive spouse or other partner that's raising the children. But this is your life. Live your life. If you're having desires of wanting to be home with your children, if you're having desires of wanting to be home with your wife, your husband, whatever it happens to be, or be able to take your dog on a walk or whatever it is, you deserve that. And there is a choice and there is a reality where that is occurring. You're not a victim that this is, on a loop, that this is the only thing that's going to happen to you. And so there are situations where people get into these victim mindsets, and it's not just single mom, it's not just racism, it's so many different things. It's people that say, I'm disabled. Let's just put it this way. If you're very attached to a certain cause, a personal cause of something that happened to you, whether that's, anything, there are real issues in this world. I understand that. But whether that's, you're very attached to women's rights, human trafficking, animal rights, you're disabled, or you're, a military vet, or, anything that you're clinging to a lot and adding that to your identity. But it's actually, if you really examine it, it's actually a very negative thing. For example, I work with a lot of people that have very severe mental illness, and a lot of them, they really cannot work. I will agree that they cannot work. But there are quite a few still that can work, and their medications or whatever they're doing is actually working for them, or their therapies, whatever they're working on has been working for them. and yet they continue to say that they can't afford anything because they're on disability. They could actually at this point get off of disability. And when this is revealed to them, when I bring this up to them, that, you know, really disability is a disadvantage because it's only giving you $500 a month, where if you worked, now that you're, you know, able to work, you could actually make more, and you might even be happier. You'd be around more people, you'd be doing more things. So it's kind of like opening it up for people, but even then there's still people that say, no, I just want to get disability. Well, if you just want to get disability because you're disabled and you just want to claim you're disabled, even though I'm seeing something different, that's a victim mentality, because what's actually occurring is that you're now healthy and able to probably get a job now, yet you're not even wanting to try or explore that and see if that's even something that, you know, is going to work for you. So they're already just ingrained on, I'm disabled and this is all I can do and this is all I can have, and they live in this very limiting space because they're limited by money and they're limited by other things as well. But this kind of mindset just only limits you. And so the mind, the brain is trying to protect you and keep you in a space of comfort. But at the same time, that comfort level, it can also be very, it can kind of take the air out of things. It could be very suffocating to one. And it could also lead to, like I say, disempowerment, where in a lot of spaces you don't feel worthy, you don't feel safe. And that's not what this is. That's not what non-duality is. And so the fear and the problem in it that happens with watching non-duality content is that it is true that life is just happening. So you will hear that a lot. And then you will hear a lot the message of acceptance for what is and just loving what is. And those two things together, if you're using this as a concept, can kind of validate and kind of make the loop of victimhood continue on and on and on. That is not okay. So if you are not okay wherever you are at, if you are feeling that you are in a victim situation, it's not non-duality. It's not okay just to say, this is just what's happening and I'm just going to accept it and live like this and be the happiest I can in this moment. You know, that sounds wonderful, but that's not what this is. What this is a whole new perspective about who and what you are. That's very expansive, very empowering. Okay, this is the God consciousness. Okay, this is the creator of, this is how everything is happening in your reality. Everything's happening within you and it's being projected out. Now, I won't go too deep into all of that right now, because if you are struggling with the victim mindset, going into all the details of that, of how it is that everything's just appearing this way and how there is no one, could actually be a disadvantage to you, in that it may set something up that's very unrealistic and that you may be misunderstanding. So this is very wonderful, but it already is this way. We need to remove those layers of lies, basically lies of, you know, victimhood, of all of these things that have been added on to you. And this is what I've talked about in different videos. What non-duality is, and what happens in just an instant is that everything that is junk, that is not truth, falls away from you. All those false beliefs about life, about religion, about, you know, money, about everything that is occurring in our existence, and beliefs now about ourselves, all literally fall away because they're not real. They're completely seen through. And when they're seen through, the true nature arises and is shown and is seen. It's clear what it is. And it's not denying it. You can't deny this. It's just, now this is what it is. It's clearly seen. Whoa, like all of this junk has just been added to me, and it was for nothing. And of course, this is all for nothing, right? It's just an illusion. But within this illusion, there are even more illusions. You know, this whole creation is a creation built on illusions. So to maintain the illusion, there is illusions within the illusion that keep it alive. Otherwise, where would there be life? And if everybody was enlightened and everybody knew or was acting a certain way, where would life be playing out? Where would there be this play of life, of, you know, good and bad, and, you know, all of this beautiful energy that occurs within every paradox, right? So this is just life. It doesn't mean or say anything about you. Even if you are in victimhood today, there is a version literally right in this moment that is at its highest level of complete embodiment, you know. So there is, you exist in so many different facets of this universe right now, currently. So, but you are choosing to identify with victimhood. And if you are choosing to identify with victimhood currently, then that is the experience that will be playing out. That will be the play of life. It's not for any reason. It doesn't really ultimately mean anything or whatever. But I can't imagine it feels very good. I can't imagine it feels very fun to play out the life of victimhood. I mean, it probably eventually, if you know, play it out to this level and eventually you realize what has been happening and you make a change or whatever, then you will probably see the benefits of, maybe there is a benefit of victimhood that I don't know about yet. So there are things that happen that we don't like or that we didn't really agree to and just happen subconsciously. But when we are more conscious, we can also look back and see why it played out that way. So it's not to say it's happening for absolutely no reason. Everything happens just for whatever reason, but for what I can see in my experience, everything plays out in the most beautiful ways. So there doesn't seem to be a cause and effect, but for whatever reason, there does seem to be, like, okay, that happened for that reason. Maybe that's the human brain patterning things out and just kind of seeing how things improve or are in a pattern. It doesn't really matter. What matters now is, are you in victimhood mentality? Do you want to be in victimhood mentality? Are you conscious of that? Do you want something different? I can tell you, if you're watching this video, it's not by chance. If you're watching this video and you are in victimhood mentality, it's completely to snap you out of it, because there is no reason to be in victimhood mentality and be watching non-duality content, hearing and learning about these things. It just doesn't go together. So it's time to drop that narrative. Just drop it now. You can drop it in one instant. And just like GPS can constantly just say rerouting every time you go the wrong way, you can do that too. If you find yourself falling into victimhood, reroute yourself. You're not a victim. You're a powerful co-creator of this universe, and you are worthy. You are infinite. You have every possibility and choice open to you at every time. Okay, and there is no authority. There is no one lower or below than you. There is nothing. Everything is happening within you. You hold the power. If basically I could hand over, you know, the power, if I held all the power in the universe and can give it to someone, here it is. Take it. It's here. All the power of the universe is here for you now. Grab it. Put it within and move on. This is it. You hold all the power. No one else does. I don't hold all the power more than you do. If you're watching this and you're conscious and you're aware, you hold all the power. That's how it works. So it's within. So you are not a victim ever. This is not a victim lifestyle. I know people that are in this victim lifestyle, especially when it comes to like a poverty mindset, and it's a loop for them. They unconsciously make these comments all day long. I can't ever get ahead. I'm no good. Every time it's one step forward and 5 steps back. It's like this constant loops of things that they say, and it only kind of solidifies their reality as being that way when really it's not. It's just this brainwashing basically that they're doing to themselves. Of course, I think most of the time it's completely unconscious. But for some people, it benefits them to be a victim. You know, they don't feel very powerful in life, yet when they're the victim, when they're the one that suffered the most, when they are the one that in that cause, let's say it's childhood abuse, they're the one that suffered the most. Or let's say it's, you know, financial abuse, or somebody's taking advantage of somebody financially. They're the ones that suffered the most. They're the ones that lost the most. There's people that try to be the biggest victim in all circumstances, and that does not benefit you at all. It seems that there's some level of power there, but there's not. There's not. That will never get you anywhere. Do you want pity? That's not what you want. Okay? So if you're the biggest victim, yes, you will get maybe a lot of attention, but it will be pity, and it will be like sorrow and things that essentially are disempowering and just lowering altogether for everyone involved. So it's better to kind of overcome it. So this is where you hear a lot the word overcomer. It's a word that's spoken a lot in Christianity. There's a lot of songs about being the overcomer. The overcomer is someone that does not allow for the victim mindset. They're always overcoming everything. They see God's power, they see God's grace for them, and they know that there is no circumstance or situation that could disempower God. That's exactly what I'm speaking of here, only you hold and have the direct source power to it. You have a direct line to that power of that infinite source. So what can go wrong? How are you a victim in that at any time? How are you? There is no way. You're pretending to be a victim. You're asleep to being a victim. You're dreaming you're a victim. You're not a victim. You're just asleep to it. So what you are is everything. You hold all the power right now. You're watching this, you hold all the power because you're aware. You're the consciousness. You're the life that's animating everything. You're the one that's creating all of this. It's already here and now, but it's all coming through you. You're choosing it. You get to choose. Do you want to choose the victim mindset, or do you want to choose the disempower, or do you want to choose the empowering, infinite, endless source of power and energy that animates everything in this existence? It's your choice. So I wanted to kind of just point this out today with non-duality pitfalls. I could go on and on with all the different types of victims that, are occurring in our existence. Yes, there are terrible things that happen in this world, in this universe. There are things that I wouldn't want to be happening to me. I agree. As far as good and bad, it's all actually neutral. But there are things that I'd choose over other things because I have preferences. I don't want pain. I don't want suffering. Maybe there are individuals that want to experience that. But for me, I don't want that. So I'm going to choose a different path. I'm not going to choose victimhood. And you can do the same. There is this pitfall of thinking in non-duality that we are not doing this, that we have no power to choose, that there is no free will. There is no free will. Yes, that is true, but it can be explained in a concept, I guess you can say. It can be explained. I can explain this to you in time and space. I can explain this to you in science, why it appears there's no free will. But what was the lesson that the child at school learned? That you can't always choose what happens to you or what your experience is. You can't always choose that. You never know what's going to happen. But you can choose how you react to it. So that's where your power is. How are you reacting to it? You're the consciousness, you're the awareness, you're that life that's animating everything. You're that energy, whatever you want to call it. How are you reacting as that energy? How are you reacting to what's happening to you? Are you letting it lower you down and turn in and continually attack you again and again and again? Or are you saying, no, this is not me, bye, and getting rid of it? What are you doing with that? So that's the thing. Your reaction, what you choose to do with it, that's your free will. So while non-duality speakers and all this is talking about that there is no self, no one is doing this, and there is no free will, there is a truth in that. But there's also a truth in that you can choose how you react to something. In your energy, you can choose the energy behind it. And so if you choose an energy of lack, of weakness, of fear, then you will get more and more of the victim lifestyle. You will get victimized more and more and more and more, and you will lead into this whole victim lifestyle, and that'll be the victim lifestyle, and you'll probably lead that till the day you die. If you can really think of it, there's people that literally lead the victim lifestyle. Something happened to them, and for the rest of their lives they're just playing that victim lifestyle out. Have you noticed that? Somebody wronged me and now I've lost my fortune, and for the rest of my life I'm destitute. That's not true. You have so many other choices. Or I can't do this because I'm old No, that's not true. The soul does not age. What you are does not age. The body does, but your mind doesn't. The brain ages, but what you are essentially is never going to live or die. Don't let anything hold you back. What is the other ongoing victim mentalities? If you have any, comment them down below so we can start kind of a discussion if you'd like. You know, there's all these mindsets. As soon as something happens, it just colors or just draws all the color out of somebody's life. Let's say somebody was, you know, a victim of a crime. Have you seen these people that are victims of crimes? They were truly victims of crimes. And so it's something that happened to them that they were not consciously choosing. And so it's justified why they're a victim, right? Because they're essentially a victim by definition. But if this continues on and on and on, that for the rest of their life, they're not doing anything productive, or they're not living out their dreams or desires because of this crime, and they talk about it and they say, you know, I can't do anything since that crime happened, or I can't do anything anymore because of that crime, or that crime has taken so much from me, or this, that. Yes, these things take from you, but they don't have to continue on. You can stop them, reroute, just like GPS. Every time you find yourself in a victim comment or mentality, reroute. If you find yourself identifying too much with a certain cause, like let's say it's autism, because maybe there's somebody in your family that has autism. Let's say it's whatever, and you see, like, you know, those bumper stickers with the support symbol and the ribbons and all this stuff, and you put them on your car and all this. You know, if you start getting too ingrained into this victim consciousness between identifying strongly with supposed issues, then you're going to also spiral into that. So just be careful. It could also happen with causes that we're deeply caring about, right? But we just can't give ourselves completely to that and suffer because of it, and just kind of unravel completely because of it. What we are is powerful. What we are is creating. What we are is beautiful. What we are is essentially love. It's always in love. It's always happy. It's always like just wanting more of life and to experience it. And even these victim situations, the most horrific things that have happened, I'm sorry they happened if they happened to you. I'm sure it was not fun. I'm sure it was not good. I'm sure it was the worst thing ever. So there is a space for going through that. And I do want to just point out, it's important not to bypass that. While I'm saying victimhood, leave it behind, yeah, leave it behind. But make sure you've processed whatever it is that you were a victim over first. So process it, feel into it, you know, really feel into that pain and go there until it's kind of released and just subsides. And then let it go. Don't ever look back there again. Leave it behind. It's just a memory, that's something that's occurring out of a timeline. But you do have to process it to some extent if you were a victim here. If you were hanging on to this victim consciousness, you got to process it. That's the inner work that I talk about, and then you can move freely out of it. So if you're having any troubles letting go of something or something like that, I have counseled people with these sorts of traumatic issues for many years. And now I've moved into more of the embodiment and kind of integration of awakenings and things like that that happen on a more spiritual basis. So I have a little bit of both. And, you know, I went to university. I'm not someone that just literally just popped out of nowhere. I studied both psychology and spirituality. I have degrees in both realms. And this is just something that is a passion to me. So if you're needing a little bit of help with processing and or moving through any trauma, then, you know, contact me. I have a couple of spaces available right now. I think I have 2 spaces available for that kind of intensive work of releasing trauma and whatever needs to be done for the person, right? So that is where you seek out counseling. That is where you seek out therapy. When that's kind of cleared up, then you're kind of a little bit more free to be and to process things a little bit more, because these loops can almost seem like parasites or diseases that are occurring within us that we just don't have a lot of control over. They just pop up and happen, just like thoughts and emotions that pop up and happen. These victimhood statements pop up and happen, and they just pull you back into the victim mentality that is so alluring to the ego. But it is not non-duality. It is not what is. It is not part of the reality and truth of our reality. Truth is not victimhood. There is no victims. There is absolutely no victims on this universe at all. There just isn't. And unless you've experienced that personally, it's hard to understand. It can be almost offensive or triggering. And I assure you, I love y'all very much. This is not to trigger you or to put you down in any way. If whatever you've been through, I understand you've been through it, and that's why I welcome anybody to contact me if they need some help moving through their trauma. But essentially, there are no victims, and one day that will be realized. But for now, that is just the case, and so I have to be a little bit more, give a little bit more of that tough love in some of these non-duality pitfall videos. So you will see that side of me a little bit more come out on non-duality pitfalls, because there is no need for this. I want y'all to have everything because you should. That is already your nature. So I give you all the power to you because you're conscious and you're the one watching this. You can take that and you can grow. You can leave that victimhood mindset. You can just move on with that and sit into your new power. Feel it. What does that feel like to be worthy? What does that feel like to be infinite? What does it feel like to have choices? Do this in your own personal time when you're alone. If you share this with your husband, if you share this with your friend, they're going to chatter, they're going to say this and that. Go into your heart. That's all you need. If you're looking to the outside world to create who you are, then you're going to be a victim because the world's going to victimize you. Don't look to the outside world for anything at all. Anything. Don't look to them at all for anything. You look within and you sit with it. And when you watch a video or something that resonates with you or somebody shares something with you, they're not the ultimate authority on that. Just take the information and sit with it. Use your own personal discernment and decide whether or not that benefits your heart, whether that is speaking life or death. Because we are life. That's what we are, is life. We're not death, we're life. Is what you're doing speaking life or death? And that'll kind of keep you on that GPS. And if you're speaking more death or more victimhood, let's say, hey, GPS, can you retract me? And then all of a sudden it'll just happen. GPS, redirecting, and redirect. It's a new moment. Now you can appear again in your power. Appear in your power at all moments, because that is what you are. That is your true nature. So thank you so much for watching. If y'all want to share anything about victimhood or anything like that in the comments down below, go ahead and share that with everybody. I'm sure we can all benefit from each other's experiences. If you like this channel and you're new here, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I upload new videos. If you want any more information about me or my contact information, all of that is in the description box below. Thank y'all so much for watching, and please come back again.